This episode of the Unused Subs with Jake Gleeson contains discussions about mental health and suicide, which may be distressing. If you or someone you know is struggling, support is available. Please consider reaching out to a mental health professional or contacting a local helpline.
I've got a massive chin. I don't remember if you remember spoons, and I've gone down up for my anger right now. So you're going to get all chin and nostrils, mate.
Kind of like a Roger Ramjet scenario, eh? Is it Stan from American Dad?
Oh, that's not a bad shout. Yeah.
I've got a chin and a half on me.
He's Captain America, mate. He's all jaw, you know.
Well, look, I mean, we're talking about American characters, but the one thing that has really impressed myself and the spoon is that you've retained your Kiwi accent throughout.
Yes.
It's been brilliant to hear. How have you managed to achieve this, Jake? Because you've obviously been in the States for a long time.
Yeah, it's actually really funny because, and I'll probably have some American words will come out or like how I pronounce them, but walking around in the States, I think that I have an American accent. So I don't realize that I got a New Zealand accent. But once I go home, I realize pretty quickly, that I have a little bit of a hybrid. But yeah, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's a strong Kiwi accent. I think that if I started talking like an American, my family would rip me to shreds pretty quickly. So yeah, if you ever hear me speak in an American accent, give me a swift slap around the head and maybe that'll knock me back into a...
Yeah, well, the audience is growing, Jake, so you might get a couple of unidentified
unidentified whacks out of nowhere.
What are the words that you feel personally you've kind of gone the American way?
Yeah, I say buddy a lot instead of mate. So I'd be like, my buddy's house, or I'm going to see some buddies.
What about champ? Because champ is red rag to a bull here. Like, you never call anyone champ.
Yeah, no, champ's a no-go. I can't say I've put champ into the vocabulary, nor am I planning to in any time.
Good man.
Yeah, champ's it's about as it's like a backhanded compliment. You know? It's like saying I don't mean to insult you, and then you go ahead and insult someone. That's what champ.
It's a passive-aggressive way to find a fight, isn't it? Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, out the gate. Yeah, but no, buddy's probably the big one, and but yeah, I'm hoping to keep on to the accent as long as I can. But marrying an American in a couple of months, so I think the States will be my home for quite some time.
Oh, mate, we're definitely going to get into that at some point. But I think
fair enough.
What I'd love to have a chat to you about first is obviously the journey that you've been on from 2018 until now. And if we start at the end, you've been successful in the courts in America. You've had a payout of, correct me if I'm wrong here, mate, 35.7 million New Zealand dollars, around about 20 million US. And the reason for that is because of neglect by a surgeon. And it all started back in 2018 when you went in for a pretty standard surgery. So do you want to start off by telling people what that surgery was for?
Yeah, for sure. So I was diagnosed with bilateral stress fractures. My left leg was, beginning to be pretty bad, and my right leg had a bit of a bump, which is the beginning of a stress fracture. And so I got x-rays, and they were basically determined that I should, go the surgical route. There's two options that you have. You can either get a rod put down your tibia, which is the most common one you'd see, or you can get a plate put on. But because my stress fractures weren't really that bad, they went with the plating option. So about 5 days later, I go in for surgery, and to get the two plates are about, I don't know, this big. It's drilled onto my tibia, so they put them on the back side of your tibia and they drill through. Wasn't the end of the world, wasn't great, but from there it kind of all fell apart rather quickly.
In terms of the surgery itself and the recovery time, so what is this like is this something that's happening all the time to footballers? Is it a regular kind of surgery that footballers receive? And in terms of a regular rehabilitation process, how long would that take?
Yeah, so I think the bilateral is probably not super regular where you see it in both legs. But a stress fracture, I wouldn't say it's common, but it definitely comes up. It's an overuse injury. Runners get it a lot. The rodding of the tibia. I would say I know 6 or 7 players who've had that done in my time. So it's not uncommon. The rotting of the leg usually takes, you're probably looking at like 4 or 5 months to get back on the field fully.
Okay.
And the plates are like probably 3 months is probably when you're back out there. About 3 months.
So that's your mindset going into the surgery. And then what was the information coming out immediately after? Because myself and Jacob and pretty much everybody else in the football community here, we've seen that since that surgery, you've undertaken 14 in total. So what was the immediate aftermath of that original surgery?
Yeah, so it took about 2 weeks for anything to kind of show up, 2 and a bit weeks. So actually, I was back training ahead of schedule, and there was actually a note from the physio that I was going to head out into the field that next week. So my all the wounds were healed up. I was back running on an Alter G at like 80% body weight, moving around.
This is like a week after the surgery.
This is about 2 and a bit weeks
Cool.
after surgery. So
That's rapid.
basically, as soon as I got back and they threw my crutches away and said you're going to start moving. So I was feeling really optimistic about it, and then we started to see some redness appear around the wound on my right leg, the scar, but everything had healed up, and so I went on oral antibiotics for 10 days, and then basically once I stopped those oral antibiotics, it came back with a vengeance. So the infection just blew up, and that red area basically just like went all around the wound, and then so they aspirated or pulled pus from the top of my wound, and then from there they said we need to take you in for a washout and potential plate removal. So that was surgery number 2. And that was about 2 and a bit weeks after the initial surgery, I believe. So it was that time they went in and did a washout, which were about 80% successful, to clear out infection, and put like a tube in my tibia, and that was pulling all the pus out, and decided to leave the plate in, which was in hindsight probably not the best idea.
Go into as much detail as you feel comfortable, but what were at this point, is it leg or legs looking like at the situation? Because obviously you get the tube put in with the second surgery, but how fast and how
Aggressive.
exactly
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah, yeah. So I had on the day of that second surgery, I had a PICC line put in. So what that means is they put a tube in your artery that goes almost near your heart, and you're injecting medication into yourself on every 6 hours. So what that does is that pumps that medication throughout your body, and so that should really help your body internally fight off whatever infection that you have. So on the right leg, they do the washout. They say there's a good chance that you can save it. They patch me back up, and then from there, I'm just have it covered the whole time. And it just never stopped leaking fluid, just never stopped leaking pus, leaking pus, leaking pus. And I got to a point where I went back in there, and I pulled off the bandage and pulled out. I had like a pad on top of it that would soak up all the fluid, and it was just covered in pus, basically.
Like what?
Um,
White, or is it green at this point? Is it
Yeah,
like
it's like yellow, basically yellowish kind of coming out. There's some clear stuff as well, but it wasn't pretty.
yeah?
So this was probably 10 days or something after the washout. So clearly it was getting worse. And like I said, I'm pumping myself full of antibiotics every day, maybe 2 weeks after. So they decide then to pull out the plate and do a washout of my right leg. So at that point, I've gone from having a bump that's a stress fracture to having 6 massive holes in my tibia.
And is this the same
Be-
surgeon, or have you gone to a different surgeon at this point?
So his partner did the second surgery, and then the third surgery was the Dr. Edelson, who was named in the case. So he took over for that third surgery, took the plate out, and did a washout. And at this point, it was just about fighting the infection in my body to make sure I was okay. So I was still on the PICC line, and this is when this is where it starts to get really, really bad. So a week after that right plate comes out, I then go in for a checkup, and my left leg is around the world is swollen and warm and hot, which is a sign of infection. So basically, essentially what's happened is because the infection had festered in my right leg so bad, it's called seeding. And so my blood had transported transported the infection onto the foreign hardware in my left leg as well. So at this point, they pull that plate out really, like basically automatically, like that next day. And now I've gone from 2 stress fractures to actually my right one had healed, to 6 massive holes on each side of my tibia. And I'm sick. Like I'm grey, I'm white, I'm not really eating much. The way that I explained it to people was like, it feels like you're rotting from the inside. And anyone that you know that's had gone septic or had those initial feelings, you just feel awful. Was throwing up, wasn't holding down food. And so I went in for the 1 week follow-up of my left plate being removed, and that wound looked just fine. My right leg still hadn't healed from the surgery 2 weeks ago, so there was still pus coming out of that leg. And the Dr. Edelson, looked at me and said, "You're fine. It's just a lack of blood flow. That's why your wound's not healing." And at that point, I was like, something's not right. And so I sought the help of another doctor.
Like, is this the sickest you've ever been? Because you say something's not right, and I think that's perhaps given a bit of a light touch. But
Yeah.
have you ever been that ill before?
I've never felt like that before. I mean, obviously you go through like really acute phases of illness, like you get like food poisoning or something like that. But there was, I couldn't. Every time I stood up, I was lightheaded. I remember one of the trainers had to like walk behind me because he was scared I was going to fall over, because I just felt so like nauseous and sick all the time. It got a bit worse after that, and so I changed providers to a new doctor who was another team doctor. And he took X-rays and I got an MRI, and he saw osteomyelitis in that, and basically I had 3 emergency surgeries in 5 days to clear out dead tissue and dead bone. And he basically opened up my wound and said that there was like gross pus. Sorry to all your listeners.
I mean, that's mate.
Yeah,
I want to
basically through the screw holes were basically like pushing out gross pus, which means that my bone was deeply infected, and I was going septic.
Oh my gosh, mate, this sounds absolutely nasty, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through all of this. It all boils down to the fact that the plates that were used weren't sterilised properly. Is that correct? And from my understanding through seeing videos, reading a lot of material, the plates and the screws that you required for your surgery weren't available. And then there was some sort of mad panic in the operating room where they made a decision to get some that weren't properly sterilised, and they flash sterilised them. Apparently the plates are supposed to go through maybe a 4 or 5 hour long sterilisation process, but your ones went through what length of time?
Yeah, so this is so in the initial surgery, basically there's things called timeouts. And so during the first timeout, the doctor asked, "Do we have all the equipment that we have?" And he was told yes. And that's before I was put under anesthesia. That wasn't the case. So when I got put under, they only had 1 plate available. And so that's when the doctor had a decision to make. Which there was actually other clean plates they had in their facility that were a bit bigger that he could have used, but he decided to utilize the one that they had available on my left leg, and then try and get one off premises, which is breaking his own policies, state policies, national guidelines, everything like that. So he just went rogue. So essentially bought in a plate from a hospital that's about 15 minutes away, put it through flash sterilization, which the normal sterilization process takes about, 5 hours. So you got to like hand clean it, put it through a steamer, hand clean it again, and then you got to store it in a sterile environment, and then you put it through an autoclave. So basically that 4-hour, 5-hour timeline was 15 minutes. It was brought in. We don't know what condition it was brought in. We don't know where it was stored at the hospital. Put it into a flash sterilization for 15 minutes. Pulled it out early. So there's a dry time that's super important, because that plate's super hot and super wet. And you're meant to have like a 10-minute or 15-minute dry time, and you pulled it out after 2 minutes. So you've got this wet, plate that's going through air, just wicking all these bacteria. And then you put it in my leg. I said this to Spooners the other day. It's the equivalent of getting a chicken breast and putting it in the microwave for a minute, and then force feeding it to someone while they're asleep, and then being shocked when they wake up and they're sick. So that's essentially what he did, just cut corners left and right.
Would you have rather have just woken up on that operating table and the doctor come to you and said, listen, we've had to wake you up and we're delaying the surgery by a couple of days or weeks or whatever it is?
Yeah, honestly, there's so many different ways he could have done it. He could have done my left leg and come in and said, "Hey, listen, mate, he could have done so many things and said, well, we're going to bring you back in 2 days to do the right leg. We want to make sure that we're doing what's right by you, and making sure we're following policies and guidelines." He could have woken me up without putting any plates in if he wanted to do them both at the same time and gone through, or he could have put in a plate that was one size bigger, but it's literally half a centimeter bigger, that was readily available to him. So there was multiple options that he had, and he decided to, like I said, break all these guidelines and pull in a plate from off premises, which I still struggle to understand, and which I've had to kind of pay the consequences for the last 7 years.
We're at the part of your story now where you've got the deteriorating bone. There's been intervention by a second doctor, as far as I understand where we are in this story. Is there any chance that you can return to football at this point?
Yeah, so what we did is he kind of basically hacked out my bone, hacked out all the material, and I was on a pick line for a few more months after that. And we got to a point where my blood work was steady and things got good, but I had these 6 massive holes in my shins. So you talk about the height of sickness. So right after that initial surgery of those 3, it's a outpatient surgery, so I'm not in hospital, so I get sent home. I'm cuddling a bag of ice on the couch, because I've got a fever of 104, and I'm basically rotting from the inside. I'm throwing up. I don't think I ate for 3 days. I don't think I slept for 2 days. Just incredibly sick, to the point where my now fiancee was pretty concerned about my health. They put this machine on me called a wound vac. So essentially they put it in your tibia, in your leg,
In the bone?
and you hit. I don't know if it was in my bone or if it was just like in the wound. But you'd hear this click, and then it would suck for about 15, 20, 30 seconds. I can't really remember. It would suck all the matter out of you. So you just feel this intense pressure in your leg, and that was agony. So I would be lying down, and I'd hear that like a click, and then I would like brace myself or hold on to something. And it was just excruciatingly painful. So yeah, it was compounding after those 3 surgeries. That was probably like the sickest I'd been to that point. But there was hope once the infection had cleared. Once I was off the PICC line and medication, that there was potential for me to come back and play. The only way forward really was if they rotted the legs, both legs. But we had to wait for my body to kind of heal a little bit before trying that. And that's, I think I said it to Piney, it was a bit of a Hail Mary, but it was one I was willing to take to try and continue my football career.
At what stage did the medical team take any kind of responsibility for what was happening to you through this period where you're sick, you're infected? Did they say at any point, oh, geez, it may have been something to do with the surgery?
No.
Not at all.
None.
And so we're still dealing
Not
with
at
the
all.
same medical team at the moment, Jake. So there's
Same. Yeah. So same medical group. It's the same surgical center, same medical group. And there's 3 doctors that would be team doctors, and they would rotate every 2 years. So I'm dealing with a new doctor, and that new doctor was actually the one who told me what happened in the first surgery. So I would have had no idea.
Right. Okay. So they've come clean, and what's your response to that? After all that time, where they could have said something to you.
Yeah, I didn't fully understand it at first. I was like, so I had to do some research and I had to meet with a doctor and kind of basically understand what had occurred, and he broke it down. And but he came clean to me out of his own personal accord. It wasn't like it was like this announcement from the club, or anybody came down and sat down with me from the club, or the initial Dr. Edelson. Even today, he still claims that he did nothing wrong. I hold a strong disagreement with him in that.
fair enough.
So
Yep.
it was,
Okay.
it was just this one doctor who I think felt personally obligated to do the right thing, and kind of come clean, because at that point, they were just telling me it was my body rejecting the plates and that I had done something wrong and that this was kind of my fault, which puts you in a bit of a mental headspin because I was doing
Because they're in a
everything
position of
they told me to
authority,
do.
right? This is a doctor. This is a surgeon. This is somebody that is
It's a
specialist
trusted
in the area.
individual.
Yeah.
You put
Yeah,
your trust in them to do the right thing.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's really opened my eyes into the trust that you put into the providers that, I was unconscious. I had no control. I had no say. Nothing to do with it. But, I've found out over time that everyone in the club knew what had occurred. And so when it gets to the end of the season, there's radio silence from them, and he's still the team doctor for the next year. So it was basically a sweep under the rug. We're going to stick with the doctor, and Jake, you can go out and figure it out from there. So, it was a pretty difficult time to say the least.
And so you're about to become the bionic man. So from the mid shin down, you're going to become the Terminator. How does that surgery go? Because this is what, your fourth or fifth now? Just if we're keeping count.
So at this point, I've had 8 surgeries. So there's a few washouts in there. So I had 3 emergency washouts and debridement. So there was, so I think it's around 7 or 8. And so in February of the following year, so we'll be in 2019 now, the doctor who did my last few surgeries basically said, we'll try and rod your leg. It's the only really way you can come back. And then from there, you'll probably have like a 6 months to try and get back on the field. And we did that. And the leg that I developed osteomyelitis in got an infection in it as well. So my knee ballooned up. I had a wound that didn't close for like 2.5 weeks. Went through 5 or 6 more surgeries there to try and save that rod, because as soon as that came out, that was it. That was my career. Was on a PICC line again, so I was pumping medicine into my heart, or my arteries to get them pumped out. But unfortunately, it got to a point where I was in hospital. I think I'd lost 30 pounds. I was grey, I was skinny. My PICC line had got infected, so I had weeping sores on my arm. And infectious disease nurse came in and basically said that rod has to come out today. So I was rushed into surgery. There was a few surgeries in between that to try and keep it, but nothing stuck. And then the rod came out, and then from there, that was it. There was just, bones don't heal that quick.
No.
And the damage of 12 surgeries on my right leg is left me with some chronic pain. So even if the rod stayed in, who knows what would have happened. But yeah, it was pretty brutal. So rod came out, and this was in April of 2019, and from there it was done.
Can I just ask a really simple question? I'm imagining that you're getting a rod put in to join 2 parts of your leg together. The rod has to come out. What is there now?
So what happens is they pull out your knee, and they actually drill a hole, and they hammer the rod through the middle of your tibia. So it's this long rod, about however long you have it, that basically stabilizes it. So it's titanium. So that got pulled out. So there was nothing. I was walking around with 6 massive holes in my shin, and no rod to protect it. So at that point, there was nothing protecting it. The rod in my left leg was fine because I didn't develop osteomyelitis in my left leg. So they pulled the rod out in my right leg in 2019. Yeah, I was just walking around with 6 massive holes in my shin. And that was probably the lowest point I've ever been in my entire life.
So you're 30 pounds down. You've got chronic pain. You've been through 10 odd surgeries at this point, and you're facing a life-changing event where you were a professional footballer going into all of this, and coming out of it, you're now not a professional footballer. Mentally, where are you at?
Yeah, so I was probably say I was on the edge for a lot of that second part of it, and in the end of 2018, my mental health was declining pretty rapidly. I would say I was in a self-destruct mode where I pushed anyone and everyone away from me. I think I said this in another interview. I was carrying around so what I did is I stockpiled a bunch of tablets, so Oxycontin, morphine, Xanax, everything that I'd been given over the course of 12, 13 surgeries at this point into this jar, and I knew it was enough to end my life. And so for a space of 2, 3 months, I just self-destructed, pushed everyone away from me, went into a really, really dark hole, and um, had that pill bottle with me or around me. And I would drive out to different places in Portland, and I would sit there and break down, and came very, very close to just consuming that and ending my life. And um, yeah, when you're in that feeling, I just felt the world would be a better place if I wasn't in it. That's just how you felt. That's how I felt. That I'd be doing a favor to people around me, and it's something I look back on now where I'm quite ashamed that I felt like that, but at the same time, the circumstances that had presented themselves and the circumstance that I was in at that point were pretty crazy, and I'm glad that I didn't go through with it, but yeah, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
That's heartbreaking, Jake. Thanks for sharing that tale, but that is absolutely devastating. And what was it that ultimately stopped you from consuming that bottle? Is it your now fiance who you're set to marry? Is it the thoughts of friends and family? What actually stopped you from putting that bottle to your mouth and ingesting those pills?
Yeah, I think it was a collection of things. I think my family, my parents, thinking about them, not wanting to inflict that much pain on anyone, regardless of the pain that you're in.
Mm.
I think as an athlete, you're naturally a fighter, and that's why I look back on those times, and I'm you know I would say ashamed of how bad I let it get to. But I'd say, yeah, family, my fiance, friends around me. But I mean, there were times where previously I'd come close to doing it, and by luck it didn't happen. So yeah, friends and family basically took me out of it, and then I think I got to a point where I knew what had happened, and I didn't want to give the doctor the power,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to get through it. Um, but it took me about 3 years, I would say, to get to a point where I was probably sleeping better again. I still don't sleep too well these days, but um, yeah, you just feel worthless. I think that's the thing, and you have this like 10,000 pound weight on your chest, and so every day you wake up, um, you're just tired, and you don't want to do it, and you don't want to move forward, and you just think the easy way out would just be, taking those pills. But I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that I'm still here, but uh, yeah, it was very, very close for a while there.
We're glad you're here too, mate. I suppose one of the things that comes to mind is all of this has stemmed from ultimately an injury. And injury and surgery and rehabilitation is part and parcel of sport, like worldwide. You do your ACL. You know that you're going to be on the sidelines for 9 to 12 months, but you have the support of your club and you get through it. You're sort of in it together. But what we know about you and your journey is that you and the club have basically parted ways, right? They have not claimed responsibility for the state that you're in. So unlike somebody who's done their ACL, you don't have that family and that connection to the club anymore. So you've been cut adrift. You're like a shag on a rock. And so I'm assuming that is also feeding into this negative mindset of, what do I do? Where do I go? Who's going to look after me now?
Yeah, I mean, I moved to the States when I was 19, so a lot of these people that were in the club I considered, extensions of my family. I didn't know anyone when I came over. And 19 to 28, these people, I was seeing them day to day. I spent majority of my time with them. There are still people at the club that I would like to have a relationship with, but yeah, essentially I was blacklisted. in my mind. No one really reached out. If they did, it was maybe once for one surgery, but basically, yeah, you're thrown out like trash. I get it to a point where, you know, you're only your best ability is availability, and so if I can't play anymore, I understand that. But on a human level, I just don't think I would act much differently to a human being that was going through what I was going through, and um, I don't think that the leadership at that club were the best humans. I'll just put it lightly. And unfortunately, the owner is still there. So yeah, you're tossed out like garbage, basically.
Just listening to that, Jake, and for those in the audience that aren't aware, Jake and I have been training and playing together since I was about 16. You must have been, I don't know, 9 at that point, Jake.
And he was better than you, Spoon?
Well, this is the thing.
No.
So this is the thing, Jake, is that I think because Portland's obviously not New Zealand, and we hadn't had an ability to hear from you. These details are shocking because we didn't know what was happening in real time. And I mean, I was sitting here just to kind of talk about my experience listening to that, like trembling, because I felt this concoction, this cocktail of, I think, shame that wasn't able to help you, and then anger, and relief, I think, is the biggest feeling that I had, because the world's better to have you in it. And I'm really proud that you've come through the other side of this, and want to say that if there's another chance that this comes up again, like I will reach out. I want to make sure that you've got someone to chat to, because I think that's the most important thing. I've lost 3 mates to suicide, and it's something that I hold really close to my heart. I had a mate that was a water polo captain of New Zealand, and he's a Rhodes Scholar, and he unfortunately was suffering from a very acute form of depression, so we weren't able to intervene to help him. But Kiwi blokes are terrible at this.
Oh, we're shocking, eh? We're
Like,
shocking at
it's
talking
horrible.
about things like this.
We are absolutely shithouse. We think we have to take the load ourselves, and I think there's 2 parts to this. Look after your mates and make sure that you have a chat to them when they're not doing so well. But equally, if you're not doing well, you need to meet them halfway. The bridge is built from both ends, so have a chat to people. But thanks very much for telling that side of the story, mate.
Well, a couple of things before you go on, Jake. You're not to know. You're not to know, because I'm assuming, Jake, you're not broadcasting it to the world like, I'm going through a tough time. You're keeping things close to your chest, and so how on earth are you supposed to know until this happens, right? And the distance makes things difficult, right? You're not going to get on the phone and go, hey, Spoon, like, I'm going through a really tough time, and sort of detail it, you know what I mean? Like, that's, while we're trying to encourage people to speak up, it is actually hard to connect at
100%.
times.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that, I went up and had dinner with my fiance's family last week, and they, obviously heard everything come out at trial, where it was probably the first time I really let it all out in a public manner. And he was like, I had no idea you were going through that. So even the people that were closest to me just had no idea. There was 1 or 2, I think, that could see the writing on the wall and that were really concerned. But I didn't speak to my family about it. I didn't really speak to many people about it. I just internalized everything. And I think I got that from just feeling that how I was feeling wasn't worth their time. And it's a weird thing to say, because if one of my mates was feeling that way, I would
You're
do
making me
anything
angry by saying that,
Yeah,
Jake.
yeah. But it's just the mentality that I was in. I just didn't feel, like I said, I go back to the line, I just felt the world would be better if I wasn't in it, and mainly those people around me that were suffering because I was suffering. And if I could take that suffering away from them, in my mind, the best way to do that was to remove myself from the situation.
Yeah, but the suffering never goes away, mate. It honestly doesn't.
No.
And, I think Spoon says that he's had 3 close mates that have taken their lives. My father is no longer with us, and I don't want to go into the details there, because I don't want to cry. But not a day goes by that I don't think about him, and I wear him on my arm. So the world is never going to be a better place without you in it. And that's what I'm so glad that you realised in those moments, mate.
Jake, as well, unused subs, reserve goalkeeper. I need a goalkeeper as a reference point, and you were it, mate. So I need you around to say that I was actually that good. The better, taller, better chinned version of me was doing it in Portland.
No. But you and we can wrap it up there. But you're spot on. I think and that's what I kind of want to do a lot of now is just tell people it's okay. It's okay to feel like that. It's okay to feel like you're not okay, and that's what people hear, and to talk it through and get a plan in place and realize that you are worth it. It's a tough thing to really put into perspective when you're in that hole, but I'm also glad that I'm here today. But yeah, talking about Spooners, Spooners was the if I could have one person's technique as a goalkeeper, it would be Spooners. But the only problem is, after every dive, he'd lie on the ground and look at his body to make sure it was the right angle. So training sessions went for hours,
perfectionist, eh?
It's neurotic. It would be it's neurotic, Jake.
It was so good. It was always like he'd pull off world class saves, and then would have to wait 5 minutes just to make sure his back angle was.
No one moved.
Yeah.
Sure this is okay.
30-minute sessions. We're out there for 3 hours, mate. But,
has someone got a camera? Take a photo of this.
Yeah.
Thank God they went around, Jake. God, that would have been bad. That would have taken us further down the wormhole.
I was going to say that I feel like GoPros, when you found out they were coming out, it might have been your best day, mate.
Brilliant.
You could go back and watch yourself after training. No, I'm just taking it.
No, mate, you're fine. But hey, let's jump onto that. You talked about the kind of competitive element of it, because we've only got to the point where you've figured out that something very seriously went wrong. How did you find out that it was wrong enough that there's a legal liability that could stem from this? And then also, a trial is not Suits. It doesn't take 25 minutes to happen, to wrap up, and it's all neat and tidy. A trial is an incredibly exhausting experience.
There's no Harvey Specter.
And the preparation, the preparation, the purgatory that you're in up until the trial is just as bad as well, mate. So can you kind of traverse those three elements where you've engaged the lawyer and then what it's like preparing for the trial and the trial itself?
Yeah, it was quite a long process. So initially I didn't, as you know, New Zealand's not a very litigious country. Like there's nothing like this back in New Zealand. So I spoke to one of the doctors and he said what he did broke guidelines. And so I went and spoke to a lawyer through my agent, who was a lawyer who they ended up representing me. And basically when I went through and told him everything that I knew what would happen, and it's a crazy story. It could be a Grey's Anatomy episode. They took the case on, and actually my uncle is a lawyer, and he was over in the States, and he met with the attorneys just to make sure that he thought that they were good.
He's done you incredibly dirty, by the way.
Yeah. And this is the same I said to Piney, and because the story is so crazy. How it all came out and how I found out, and like the sales rep that was meant to have the plate there was out on a boat drinking with one of the other doctors. It's a whole crazy story. And so I went in and told it to the lawyer, and I walked out of the room, and they were just, my uncle was in there, and he's like, "Is he telling the truth?" And my uncle goes, "He may not be the smartest lad in the world, but he's an honest one." And so they took the case on, and that was back in into 2018, so I hadn't even finished.
I'm going to have words with your uncle, by the way.
Yeah, no, he's taken it back since, but I think there's a lot of other things in my life where you could look to and say, yeah, the evidence stacks up on that side too. So, yeah, so at that point we go through it, and you go through 2 years of, basically went through 2 years of them trying to because there was no evidence of this in any of my medical records. The doctor didn't document any of this. They're all clean. And so when you file a case, you have to have a medical expert that believes what you're saying and that there was negligence. So it took us like almost 2 years to find that doctor, and then you have a 2-year window from the incident happening to when you have to file. And we made that window by like a month.
Oh, wow.
So we only just got it through because we got a doctor to say that there was negligence that happened. So that was filed in July 6th of 2020. And then when COVID happened and the court shut down, civil cases kind of got shut down. So my case usually it takes about 4 years to go through court. Um, but my case was delayed three separate times. And then because there were so many people, so that delayed it another 3 years basically. So we find ourselves at the start of 2025. And yeah, it's not like Suits where you go in and drop a document down and then everyone claps and you walk off and
Keep going, mate. Keep going.
yeah,
This is a daily battle that I have to fight, mate. Honestly, my mates
it's
that are having a beer and they're like, "Oh, you haven't wrapped that up yet?" I was like, "No, it takes."
Yeah, but
no,
nobody thinks you're Harvey Specter either.
yeah. Well, he might, but
Yeah, Jacob definitely does.
yeah.
He definitely
I
does, but
like,
he's not.
I'm like that's the Suits New
I got
Zealand
Lois
spin.
Lit thrown at me the other day.
Yeah,
Suits
yeah.
NZ. Suits NZ starring Jacob
Yeah.
Spoonley. Oh, give
Well,
me strength.
Jake's
So
looking
good.
for a new career, mate. So you can take up acting. You can be me.
Yeah, and mate, my chin would hit the camera every time I turned around. So yeah, the trial is brutal. So you go through depositions. We did like 30 depositions of everybody that was in the room, of medical professionals, of doctors, everybody that was part of it.
A deposition
And
is
so
an account of what happened from that person's perspective, like in the
yeah,
situation. That's the key thing, right?
yeah, yeah. And so you're under
Yeah,
oath,
come
you're
on,
on
mate. We've
camera.
seen Suits.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fucking
So they deposed everyone that was there or had anything to do with it, training staff. I mean, everyone. Lawyers love billable hours. And so
No comment.
I did three separate depositions even before we got to trial. And then you get to trial, and it's just we started first, so our case went first. So we get the first, I think it was the first 7 days of business days, and then they got the next 7 days, and then there was 2 days of deliberation. But yeah, I think I went in at. And I'll do pounds because that's another thing that I do as American. I was about 204 pounds.
I haven't converted this yet, mate.
I'll do a conversion now. 204 pounds is 92.5 kilos.
Yeah, yeah.
And then what's 180?
180.
Yeah, 180 is what I weighed in at. I think it was like 181 what I weighed in at the end.
Okay, we'll go 181 is 82 kilos.
So yeah, lost 10 kg. So yeah, it's not a fun experience. It's incredibly stressful for both myself, my family, friends, and those that come in and testify for you. So, and even now I see today, like I don't have the $20 million check. There's appeals, there's appeal costs, there's this can last another 4 or 5 years. So, it's just the nature of the system. But like you said, I wouldn't have had the ability to go after the doctor in another country. So you got to take the good and the bad with that.
What is everyday life like for you now after all of this, Jake? What is it like physically living with the pain? I'm assuming there is still discomfort and pain in those legs, and what is life like between you and the Portland Timbers, and also football in general?
The way that I determine like life is it's a cost analysis. So if I want to go and do something, I have to really understand like how much pain is that going to cause me. I would say there's always kind of some kind of throbbing pain that I go through just generally. If I want to go out and do like a hike, I know there's going to be some acute pain and some soreness after that. So I still push myself as much as I can, but it just means that I'll be hobbling around for 2 or 3 days, 4 days afterwards and having to ice my legs. So I golf because golfing is just walking. I can't play football. I can't really jump. I mean, I could barely get over a credit card these days. So yeah, I'm not too, and it's kind of messed up my mechanics as well. So like my knees are sore and stuff like that. So I'll eventually have to go on some nerve blockers and take medication for it eventually. But I kind of want to hold that off as long as I can. And then sleep. I don't really sleep too much. Post trial, it's been a little bit of an ease. But yeah, just anxiety, stress. I still go through bouts of depression and anxiety, panic attacks, things like that I never ever had before. So it's just a new world that you have to live in and kind of conquer, and realize that if stress is getting too much or you're pushing yourself too much, you just have to kind of sit back a little bit, which was never a world I was in. And then yeah, I'm going to my first Timbers game this week with the army. So that'll be interesting. That'll be an emotional roller coaster.
How do you think you'll be received?
I think I'll be received just fine by the fans. I don't think the front office want much to do with me. But
How
that's been the
disappointing is
case.
that?
I can't change how people act and how people are. That doctor, I believe, and that company is still the doctor for the team. So uh, it's out of my hands. Yeah, I think you can Google the owners of the team or the management of the team and find out pretty quickly what kind of people they are. So it's not surprising. I'd put it that way, but it is what it is. Um, but yeah, I'm not the person that I was before this. Like I'll still laugh and joke, and but I think when you go through something that kind of takes so much away from you, you come out different on the other side for better or worse.
And who have you done this with? Who's been on this journey with you? Because I think that person deserves a little bit of credit. And I imagine you're going to say it's the person I'm going to be standing alongside in a couple of months' time with my
Yeah,
friends and family.
100%. So Jordan, my fiance, is. I say this with 100% honesty. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. Fact, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for her. So, um, yeah, we were probably been together for I don't know 6 or 7 months when this all kicked off, and she's been by my side since. I mean, there were times where this is probably a bit gross, but I'll let you know I couldn't even get to the bathroom in time. So I'd wake up and I was in so much pain I couldn't get there. And so I had to, pee in a jug, and she would empty me the jug, and she was there for me the entire time, picking up my script, making sure I was eating, even when I didn't. Yeah, she's a remarkable human being, absolutely remarkable human being that I am very privileged to be with. She also worked at Make-A-Wish and is head of social impact for On, so she's got a tremendously big heart. So she's a very good human being.
What a woman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Jake,
don't
just
don't ask her why she's with me because I'm still trying to figure it out.
She loves that strong jawline, mate.
Yeah. She can't actually see it above it. She just sees straight into it. Yeah, it's
She
just
has
all
no
her.
idea what you facially look like. It's just all
Nah,
jaw.
yeah.
nah. I told her I look like Chris Hemsworth, and that's what she believes. So
Yeah, well, Australia and New Zealand often gets confused, so
yeah,
let's enjoy those bird lines.
yeah.
Hey, I wanted to round all of this off by, and I think G's touched on it there, your relationship with football. You were, as a 28-year-old, in the prime of your career, going in for a standard surgery. Did you know, or did you contemplate at that point in time that that would have been the last time you kicked a ball as a professional?
Nah, not at all. I remember leaving that field and being like, "It's okay. This is part of the journey. You've got to take the good days with the bad, and you got to stay even during the bad days, and you got to stay even when things are going well. But never in a million years did I think leaving the training field that day that would be the last day I'd be on a training field and catching a ball, or the last professional game that I had would be it. I feel at that point I had a lot more in the tank and a lot more to give. So it's yeah, it got taken away pretty quickly. My relationship with football, it's hard to not love it. I mean, it's given me so much opportunity. It's taken me around the world. I've met some incredible people, some lifelong mates, and you know, I can't deny that part of it and just the experiences I had. There was a long time where I didn't want to be around a football, didn't want to touch it, didn't want to go near it, and associate it with pain. I'd say it took me a few years to kind of get over that, and just appreciate it for what it was and what I got to experience. And yeah, it's a pretty special game and how it impacts people. So the love is still there. The ability most definitely is not. I can say that for sure.
And do you think it would help if you were given an opportunity to say goodbye properly?
Maybe, yeah. I still never fully announced my retirement. Even though it's writing's on the wall on that one.
Neither did I, Jake.
Yeah. I don't think that one's going to take the world by shock. I think being around it again would be good. It's just it's something that I haven't allowed myself to really process or think about too much. But yeah, I think that being around it one more time or being involved or something like that would help. But Spooners, you can't get away from it. Once you've caught the football bug, that's it. You're done, and so that'll be me for the rest of my life.
It hits you at the DNA level, doesn't it, mate? Like it's just there. It's infused into you. You can't separate yourself from it.
No, especially if you're a goalkeeper, because you've got to be stark raving mad to want to be a goalkeeper. There's something wrong with goalies. So yeah, you've got to love it pretty emphatically to want to cop a ball in the face at
Close range.
At 100k an hour or whatever it is. Yeah.
Hey, maybe on the next episode of the Unused Subs, you can finally announce your retirement.
We're trying to get ratings going up, Jake. We don't want them to dive off a cliff.
Spooner's retirement episode, maybe get testimonials from everyone you play with. I think they would turn fairly quickly into a roast, but I think the views would be
we need to strike up a deal with Comedy Central, eh?
Yeah. Get a couple of the bigwigs in, but I think you've got to be a bit crazy to be a goalie, and I think that part of it was just, small-sided games. Best thing in the world.
Oh, yeah, mate. Yeah, I'd love those. Let's get into the craziness, though. The 2012 Olympics. You were the first team to get a reprimand from the NZOC, and it's not anything to do with football or on the training field or even athlete behaviour, Jake. It's to do with a couple of support staff.
Yeah, listen, if you give free McDonald's to a group of New Zealanders, trouble will commence. Seamus and Rowley were determined to have
Seamus Martin and Roland Jeffries. We're going to name them.
Rowley, the physio, the long-time physio, right?
Yeah. I didn't want to throw last names out there, but Spooners, if you're comfortable with it, they've gone.
I need to balance that checkbook a little bit.
I think we had been there. Maybe this was the first day. We literally just rolled in, and there's a McDonald's. McDonald's sponsors the Olympics, so they always have a McDonald's set back up somewhere in the village. So you got all these athletes eating like salads and chicken and rice and prepping their body and fueling it, and you've got the under-23 New Zealand lads, a group of us in the back watching Seamus and Rowley have a cheeseburger eating competition. To which I think Rowley won with like 10 or 11 cheeseburgers.
Against Seamus. Peak Seamus Martin.
And Seamus would have been running his mouth as well into this, right?
Oh, Jake? Seamus thought he was going to demolish him, but Rowley's a psycho, man. I don't know what he was doing, but he's they've sat back there, and I don't know what the end score was, but Rowley's won. I think they were both in double digits, so we're looking 10 plus here. Rowley was pretty crook for the rest of the day and probably the next day. Seamus, I think that might have changed the course of his life forever. He looked worse for wear for the next week. Couldn't even imagine what it was like the next few days on the bog, but they got through it. I don't think Rowley was hitting his peak speed running the water bottles out, and I think there was some extra weight carrying him down.
Bit of baggage.
I don't think they had dinner. I don't know if they've been back to McDonald's since. That'd be a question to ask them. But yeah, let's just say he wasn't Usain Bolt getting the water out for the boys. Let's just say that much. Rowley has all the candy, all the lollies in his room, and I'm a sucker for jet planes, and I can't get them in the States. Whenever we do the New Zealand trips, I'll just be there and I'll just be grabbing jet planes out of his
Did you hoard any? Bin. Did you take them back with you?
Nah, never hoarded any, but I ate my fill when I was in the room, that's for sure.
Now, I've got to say, I was a little bit resentful, jealous at the time, but afterwards, feeling like I dodged a bullet.
Honiata.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the head drops.
Yeah, I know.
He
knows what's coming.
After everything we've spoken about, and there's been some immense disappointment over the last 7 years, Jake, and it's the mention of Honiata that has the head drop like that.
Yeah, listen, It's not nice to be associated with the
It lives in infamy, Jake.
mate.
Like
Hey, the ball's got to go through 10 other players
I'm
before
not
it
even
gets
talking
past
about
you.
that. I'm not the results on the field.
Mate.
Like that's one thing, but like the whole thing was a debacle. And don't feel like we need to get into all the details today, mate.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
get-
I'll probably keep a few of those details to my grave. To be fair.
Oh, wow.
No, no,
What happened?
yeah. I mean, no, no, no. Yeah, on the field wasn't the greatest. And I think I just come back from injury, and yeah, Mark Heston's got a concussion like minute one of the game, and Mossy's over there, but he's not playing, and I didn't know that, and so I thought I was going there for third string to get my first, kind of taste of the All
So
Whites on tour.
you're post-injury thinking you're going to ease your way into this.
Why was
Yeah,
Mossy not playing? He was listed on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he might have had an injury
Groin, maybe,
or
mate?
something like that. Yeah, I honestly don't remember. But then when Passy went down, he's like, "Yeah, Jake, you're going in." I was like, "Oh yeah, fair enough." And I was out of shape, played horrible. I think we all didn't have our best game. I'm pretty sure you said it has to go through 11 players first. Well, one of them went directly through 11 players and my legs. So I would say it's not. It wasn't the sharpest from myself, but I'll put my hand up on that one and say, yeah, that wasn't the best day for New Zealand football. But off
me
the
a-
field, it was.
Do me
Yeah,
a
it was a bit
favour
of
and
a
describe the
moment.
conditions, because this is something that people in New Zealand will not
Are
appreciate.
you talking pitch or
Everything.
humidity?
Like-
Everything.
The way I describe it to people, Jake, is that there was one time, legitimately, I got off the plane, and in Honiara,
The wall of heat hit you?
we go down the steps and you go around the back of the plane, and I was like, oh, the engines are still on.
Yeah, you're just constantly damp. That's it. You just walk around damp. But the fields are bumpy and horrible. But you get over that. You have to deal with that. The heat is. I mean, we'll go in at halftime, and I'm not even running. I'm playing fetch, mate. The ball's coming to me, and I'm throwing it back out. And I'm changing my shirt and pants and everything because I've sweated through them. It's
Far
really
out.
really tough. Yeah, I don't think people understand. But at the same time, like you got to get through it. But yeah, you get slapped in the face with humidity in the islands, that's for sure. And then they always put New Zealand. I feel like we always played at like midday or 2 o'clock, right when the sun was the hottest. So that was always fun. But
So Rowley and the management team would always come back, and they're like, there's thunderstorms tomorrow. And we're like, oh yeah, we've heard this one before. So we can't play at 5 or 6 o'clock. When are we playing? 11:30, but we've talked them back to 12. You're like, right, so middle of the day, 45 degrees,
Good,
100%
good.
humidity. Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it rolls around to 5 o'clock. Where are the clouds, Jake?
Nothing.
Nothing. There's
Nothing.
zero there. Yeah, it's just
I
it's
stitch up.
it's the games that they play.
I've got to give them credit because, look, there's a huge gulf. There's a massive chasm between New Zealand and the rest of the Oceania nations. So they've got to take every possible advantage they can to level out that playing field.
I mean, they've got it. I completely agree with that. That's how they're going to get through, and that's how we didn't get through, that composition at the time. But you got to. It's not excused by any means of the imagination. You got to go there and you got to deliver, and we did not deliver. But it's tough. It's hostile. It's also a lot of fun when you can get through and get wins there because I think when you're over there and you're playing, I think you're as Spoon is like you truly understand how hard it is to get results. But yeah, Honiara was one I'd like to forget pretty quickly. I think a few other the boys would too.
To round it all out with your Whites career, I think you were primed to step into the Anthony Hudson era as the number one, or at least be competing for that spot. But we didn't really see enough of you. And I think a lot of the squads were made up of Steph in goal, who was playing really well at the time, and I thought you'd go head-to-head with him. But then Tama and Mossy were there, but no Jake Gleeson. So what happened in that regard?
Yeah, I got called in early to a couple of the tours, and at that time I was doing pretty well in the MLS. I went to a camp in the MLS, but I had a sports center at the time, and so I got through the game against Mexico in Nashville. And at this point, like I was in pain. I was getting numbing injections back in Portland just to make it through the end of the season, and so I went down and had a chat with Anthony. I was like, "Am I going to play against the States?" And he was like, "Well, Steph's the number one, and all fair play. He hadn't put a foot wrong, so he gets the games." And I was like, I think I've got to go back and get a scan done on my groin. Something's not right. And so, would you mind if I left the camp early to go get this taken care of? I ended up having surgery like 2 days after the season. And I thought that we left in a good spot, and I was like, I'll only go if it's okay with you. And he was like, yeah, if that's what you need to do for your health. And then from there, it was just never ever talked to me again.
Not
So
one single word.
no, I've not spoken to him actually. Confeds was the next year. Wasn't picked up for that one. I don't think I've spoken to him since that camp. I just was picked up. I think he came out in the media and said that I wasn't committed to New Zealand football or
Oh,
something
no.
like that. And yeah, I don't know. For people that know me, know I'm not a very arrogant person, or think that I'm better than anything. So I was a bit disappointed with that. But if that's the way he felt, then you can't do much to change that. But yeah, I had surgery like a month later, because it was so bad. So it was a bit unfortunate, but you can't. It is what it is at this point.
Makes it a bit awkward as well because you're moving in similar circles. Obviously, once his All Whites career was done, he moves over to the States where you reside.
Yeah, I actually think we played against them, and I was playing against them like the following year or something like that, or 2 years later, and I didn't get a handshake. That's when all the New Zealand coaches were with them, I think. But yeah, no, I haven't spoken to him or run into him apart from that game, and I think I exited the field pretty quickly. But yeah, it was a bit unfortunate. I would love to have, been involved, but such is life.
All right, Jake, we're going to go into the starting 11. I'm going to put you on the spot.
All
You ready?
right. Yeah, let's go for it.
And here's your starting 11.
All right, what is the worst ground you've had to travel to?
Wherever Island Bay played in Wellington. I can't remember the name of the field, but it's absolute dog. It was just the worst.
So you play like Central America, everywhere for the All Whites in the islands.
Across Oceania,
Island
and
Bay
it's
is
Island
just
Bay.
coming for a
Mate.
slap.
I can't remember. I think they've put turf fields in there now because it was just horrendous. It was like playing in a bog. I can't remember the name of the field, but wherever Island Bay played, that place was terrible.
What was your pre-match meal?
It would have been eggs, baked beans on toast.
Golf handicap?
I'm about a 9.5 right now.
That's not bad, mate.
Yeah, she's dropped off a little bit, but about 9.5, I think.
Going to get out there off the back of the Masters?
Yeah. I don't know if Rory's inspired me or maybe giving me a panic attack after today, mate. But yeah, I'll try and get some. The weather's kicking off now in Portland, so I'll be able to get out and play a few rounds, which I'm excited about.
Nice. Who was your All Whites roommate?
I think it was Mikey O'Keefe, or Ollie Sale. I roomed with Ollie Sale in a couple of times.
That is a
It was
big spectrum that you are traversing
know.
there, mate.
I played golf with Ollie when I was back in New Zealand a couple of times, and it was like being around a better version of myself. Like I'd been through all these surgeries. He's better than me at golf. He's better looking than me. He's a better football player. I was like, I just hated him out the gate.
So you're never going to hang out with Ollie again. Sorry,
it's
mate,
too
we
much of
can't be friends anymore.
He's better at jibboarding as well, by all accounts, given what he had to go through as a kid, mate. So yeah, enjoy that.
He's better at everything. I just remember walking off. I was like, man, that sucked. No, he's such a good
Well, at least
lad.
you know how I feel now, Jack. So there you go.
Wow.
Where is somewhere that you've played during your career that you want to go back to now that you've finished?
So I didn't play, but we played because I was injured. But we played at Old Trafford against Egypt at the Olympics, and I want to go back to a game at Old Trafford. Yeah,
What was your first club?
Takaro in Palmerston North, I think they're called. Yeah,
What are they
Takaro
called?
Soccer Club. Takaro.
I was Palmerston North End, mate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is strange actually, because we've got 2 Jacobs,
Yes.
we've got 2 goalkeepers,
Yes.
we've got 2 guys born in Palmerston North.
Yes.
So it's almost like you are one and the same. Like, are you about to marry like Chrissy's twin or something? Like, is that how close you 2 are together?
You do have a
I
fiery
didn't
Croatian woman that you're going to put a ring on? Is that
No, I can't say that. But I didn't even know you were from Palmerston North, mate.
No, I've
He
hidden it
keeps
pretty
that
well.
quiet. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say you've done really well to hide that. I didn't know that you should have at an early age, or so I would have claimed Wellington from the get-go.
I know Anna Green's of the same variety, mate. She's from Palmy as well, and so the Sky broadcast team is infused with Palmerston North.
It's a place you probably want to drive around rather than through, but that's all right,
Well, we can edit that out if we want to, mate.
Yeah, probably take that one out. Actually,
I think we're going to leave it in.
Favorite
Yeah,
non-footballing athlete, Jake?
Tiger Woods.
The movie that you want to go back and watch for the first time.
Probably all 3 Lord of the Rings.
What is the team that you supported growing up?
apart from Team Wellington, of course, it was
R.I.P.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I really followed them too much, but whenever I watch Liverpool, I always wanted Liverpool to win.
Well, we're not going to ask this question, what is your worst injury? We're going to ask, what is your second worst injury?
Yeah,
Because we've got the answer to the original question.
I think we can rubber stamp that one.
That one's answered. Yeah, I mean, the fact that we can laugh about it, now it's good. Probably the sports hernia that I had, that was terrible. I'd say the sports hernia.
Living in Stumptown, we've actually had 2 back-to-back Portland guests.
That's right, Finn Sermon last week.
The mecca of coffee in the US. What is your coffee order?
I'm gonna go with just a flat white, just your basic flat white, and
Still a Kiwi.
A Kiwi.
And here's your starting 11.
Actually, just on Stumptown and playing for the Timbers, how many pieces of wood did you ever collect from, what's his name, Timber Joey?
Yeah, Timber Joey. So we went there in 2007 with the New Zealand under-17 team, and it was Timber Jim, and then now it's Timber Joey. I think I would have had a fair few in my time. I actually have a really cool, my buddy's a really good artist, and so I have one of my logs has a picture of, laser printed a picture of us winning the championship, and then our winner's medal from 2015 is actually like stuck in it and engraved in it.
Photo.
So
we need a photo to put up. That's going on a reel, mate.
I'll send you a photo. I don't know. I don't know where it is actually.
Go and get it, mate. Fetch it. Yeah. Bring the log into the shop.
No, we're not having on our podcast Jake dropping this thing.
I think it might be in my storage unit, so I got to do that. I also lost the winner's ring for about 6 months. I had no idea where it was. So obviously, my mind's a vault. But yeah, I've got a few of those logs. Well, I had, but that's a special one.
Nice one, mate.
Do we have time to ask about the MS13 story, or should we save that?
I reckon we save that for a later date.
Jake, do you want to come back on?
Yeah, we have to get Jake Gleeson
story?
back on for another one that's all about the MS13.
Yeah, let's just say we left El Salvador, and I still had my kit on, but we didn't have time.
You left fast.
See, and this is where we leave it, because it's a nice tease for the next time we get you on.
Did we make a cliffhanger? I think we made a cliffhanger.
Yeah, we just made a cliffhanger episode.
Perfect.
What happens next time we have a chat with Jake Gleeson?
Three volumes of Lord of the Rings. We're going to have at least 2 of Jake Gleeson. This is perfect. What a great way to finish.